Hi, I'm John, and we're here in Christ Church, some of us in person and others out there online in Zoom. And so we are here to finish our series on Ecclesiastes. And we've talked about four different paths that the author traveled, King Solomon, searching for the meaning and purpose in life. But now in this last talk, I want to just share several phrases that we haven't talked about yet. I think they're really wise, they're profound, and even though they were written a long time ago, thousands of years ago, they are still being reflected upon today. And so I hope that at the end of this series, you still have the desire, the hope to go back and read Ecclesiastes, and then to read one of the Gospels. Read the whole book of Ecclesiastes, it's just 10 pages, and then go read one of the Gospels where one greater than Solomon presented his sense of finding purpose and meaning in life. But let's go to the text. Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verses 1 and 2 start off saying, "There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under heaven. There's a time to be born, and there is a time to die." And so there begins a whole text looking at the significance of times. For everything, there is a time. And so here's where the author begins to reflect on the tensions, the contrasts, the polarizations in life. For everything, there is a time. We don't have to live in a big hurry with a lot of haste and anxiety. God, says the author, will make all things beautiful in their time. It's a way of saying, possibly in part, that yesterday was important. Tomorrow will be important. But today is a day that we have to live, to feel, to be present. Today we have to live what is right here in front of us. And at the same time, we have to trust in the times of God. Paul, the Apostle Paul, wrote 1,100 years after Solomon, and he said, "One person plants, another waters, but God makes things grow." So I'm asking myself, am I living as though I'm trying to control my times, or am I living with a kind of awareness and consciousness of what Jesus said in Matthew chapter 6, verses 28 to 34? Listen to Jesus' words. Is this my lifestyle? Jesus said, "Why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow? They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you, O you of little faith? So don't worry, saying, 'What will we eat?' or 'What will we drink?' or 'What will we wear?' For the pagans run after all these things, but your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself." Solomon understood that the times have their own significance, but he wanted to understand the times so that he could control them. Jesus affirmed that it is possible to understand the times, but not to control them. It's not possible to control them. The times change, but Jesus is saying they're changing in order to teach us how to trust. Not to control, but to trust. I'm very interested in Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verses 11 and 12, where the author says, "I've seen something else under the sun. The race does not belong to the swift, or the battle to the strong, nor does food come to the wise, or wealth to the brilliant, or favor to the learned, to the intelligent. But time and chance happen to them all. Moreover, nobody knows when their hour will come." Solomon was onto something there. He had some truth that he was understanding. He was sensing that what we see with our eyes is only a part of a greater whole. We see the exterior. We see what's visible, what people say, what they do in public. We see for a moment, and what we see seems absurd, meaningless. Well, if the visible is all that there is, if this moment is all that we have, then Solomon's right. Life really does not have meaning. But Solomon also remembered the words of the prophet Samuel, who had learned and shared in a time when he was trusting in God for the destiny of a nation. 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 7 says, "But the Lord said to Samuel," the Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. I wish that all of us could understand that God always looks at our heart, our intentions, our motivations, our attitudes. That's why Solomon was never able to find the meaning of life, the purpose of life, in the things, in the material things that he acquired, in his great knowledge and wisdom, in his accomplishments, in his search for pleasure. It's because life is really, the importance of life, the purpose of life is really about something that's much more lasting, much more profound. Ecclesiastes 3:11, we've quoted it every single week in this series. God has put eternity in the hearts of all people. It's our heart, our spirit, our soul that's most important in this life. Solomon eventually wrote Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23. He wrote many of the Proverbs. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Another translation says, guard your heart because it is the wellspring of life. In life, your heart matters more than your body. Because faith, living by faith, is not about making great commitments. Living by faith is not about the commitments you make, even if they're really good commitments. But living by faith means learning to trust that God will make all things beautiful in the appropriate time. You know, there's something really attractive about our materialist culture that invites us to live in the moment, like we've been talking about, just to be happy, not to have worries about what's going to happen in the future, but to be happy for ourselves and to help those around us. It's a noble attitude, but it's really insufficient if we want to find real meaning and purpose in our lives. It's insufficient. It's not enough to just live in the moment, says Solomon, because the future is a time and a space that's waiting for us. Our future is real, just like the past was real, just like our present is real. Our future is waiting for us, and it's real. And so that's why he wrote Ecclesiastes like he did. He wanted to help us to think about our actions, our attitudes, and the long-term consequences. That's why he closed with a conclusion that's not as materialist as so much of the book appears to be. Let's look at chapter 12, the few verses. The writer says, "Remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the days of trouble come," old age, "and the years approach when you will say, I find no pleasure in them. Before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars grow dark," he's talking about dementia, "and the clouds return after the rain," depression, "when the keepers of the house tremble," your arms and your legs, "when the strong men stoop, your shoulders and your back, when the grinders cease because they are few," your teeth, "and those looking through the windows grow dim," your eyes. Verse 6 of chapter 12 says, "Remember him," the Creator, in verse 6, "before the silver cord is severed," our spinal column and nervous system, "and the golden bowl is broken," our brain and our thought processes, "before the pitcher is shattered at the spring," like a heart attack possibly, or the wheel is broken at the well, inside all the internal body organs are ceasing, like our kidneys. The writer says in verse 7, before the dust returns to the ground that it came from, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. Meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher. Everything is meaningless. Well, he doesn't really mean everything is meaningless, but he's concluding that a meaningless life comes from living for the material when the ultimate reality is spiritual. Jesus gave a famous speech about finding happiness, the pathway to happiness, to wisdom, and to finding meaning in life. It's this famous speech is found in Matthew chapter 5, 6, and 7, and it's typical of his cultural context and the way of communicating in that time, that in the very middle of his talk is found the main part of his message. In Matthew chapter 6, verse 33 and 34, we've already read it and I'll share it again. Jesus said, "Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, his justice, and all these other things will be given to you as well. So don't worry, don't live worrying about tomorrow. Tomorrow will worry about itself." Jesus is saying, as Solomon said, everything happens in its time. Trust God, he will make things beautiful. It is possible, I say, for us to live with confidence in the processes without having the need to control the results. The secret of finding significance and meaning in life is to trust in the Creator who will make all things beautiful in its time. And listen to Jesus, who said in John chapter 14, "You believe in God, believe also in me. I am going to prepare a place for you so that where I'm going, there you may be as well." Jesus invited us to pursue his kingdom life, his reign, his way, his truth, and everything else will fall into place in its time. Ecclesiastes is a perspective. It's part of the story. It's a shortcut to understanding all of the roads we don't have to take. Solomon later organized many of the Proverbs and even some of the Psalms. He wrote and pulled them together, and he's showing us a path. We don't have to try everything, particularly that don't give us satisfaction. We don't have to try them. We don't have to go down those roads for a lifetime. So it's good to read Ecclesiastes in this context and to contemplate the words of Jesus and also of James, who wrote with a very similar style. It's okay to ask questions, to wonder, to be curious, to contemplate. But just like the master, the teacher, Solomon concluded, if you're looking for the purpose of life, the meaning in life, the true meaning and significance of this world that we're in, then don't wait too long to give your life and trust it to God. Give over your life. Release the worries, the control, and trust while you still have youth and strength and you can make a contribution. Don't waste your energies in meaningless searches. Solomon already made the investigations. Our part is to listen, to learn, and to build on what we've been taught. Jesus said, Matthew 6:33, "Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well." May God bless you as you study and grow.